Welcome to the Orchard Cast. I'm your host, Jeremy Appel, speaking to you from a piece of Treaty 6 territory known as Edmonton. Sometimes I talk about sports on this podcast, and what a better time to do so than the Toronto Blue Jays coming as close as can be to winning the World Series. No, they didn't win. Jays fans will instead have to settle for the 2025 American League Championship after failing to defeat Shohei Ohtani and the Los Angeles Dodgers in extra innings in Game 7. But what a run it was. A major turnaround from last year's dismal season in which the Jays placed last in their division. This year, Jays veterans George Springer, Alejandro Kirk, Bo Bichette, Kevin Gossman, and Dalton Varsho returned to form. Star player Vladimir Guerrero Jr. signed a $500 million contract extension, ensuring he'll be a forever Jay. And less experienced players, such as Ernie Clement, Addison Barger, and Nathan Lucas, stepped up in a big way. Although they didn't quite make it past the finish line, Jays fans have a lot to be proud of. Andrew Stoeten writes the Batflip newsletter, in which he covers the Blue Jays in great detail. He joins me momentarily to discuss the season that was. Andrew Stoeten, welcome back to the Orchard Cast.
Hey, thanks very much for having me, man. Happy to be back.
Yeah, it's been a few days now since the Jays lost the World Series in Game 7. How are you feeling?
I mean, I'm still here. That's good. How can you feel? But pretty stung, I think, by the way that turned out, and what a love story that was between the team and the fans, and how many opportunities they had to put their name on that trophy that they just weren't able to get over the line. It was tough. I think we'll look back and we'll look at they're going to fly the American League Championship banner at Rogers Center. We'll be able to look at that with, the bittersweetness that it deserves, because it was a great run. It wasn't like it wasn't like there was another game to push it to. They got right absolutely there. They can hold their heads high, but yeah, tough one to take. Obviously, that is as excruciating a way to lose, I think, as could be devised, basically.
Yeah, it's very bittersweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because on the one hand, I mean, the Jays, the last time they won the AL pennant would have been 93, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Because that was the last time they made the World Series. So
Yeah.
that's good. But, as they were saying, I want it all and we didn't get it all.
I mean, I think fans can look back and like there's lots to have appreciated, and like it was a great ride. Like, I don't want to be too down about it. You just can't help but be down about the way that it ended. But there wasn't, like I said, there wasn't more baseball to be played. It had to end. Somebody had to win it. And I think they could feel good about what they saw, and feel good about, what the way that it brought people together. And I know that's corny, but like I had that very experience where, just people talking about the ball game, people talking about the team, people, I'm watching games with people who never would watch games before, and they're getting invested in it. And, everybody's sort of pulling in the same direction. And the team itself, the guys on the team were really, it was just a likable group who very obviously at the end, really cared about each other and really felt a strong connection with each other, and really wanted to get it done. And like, that's part of why it was so devastating for them and for everybody else, the way that it ended. But a great story, a great ride. Not every movie has to, have a happy ending, I guess. But these are all just sort of coping mechanisms at this point. Like, it was, I'm not going to tell anybody not to feel awful about how that ended, and how the dream sort of shattered. It was a great year, though, overall for the Blue Jays. They are in a better place today than they were a year ago by leaps and bounds. watching Shane Bieber is coming. He's decided to opt into his contract at a huge financial loss. Not a great, not a great move if you're his union, probably, but something that just speaks to what they had in that clubhouse and what the organization is doing. And for an organization that has been so snake bitten and so had such difficulty getting people to take their money and to have the biggest stars come here, this I think has upended that a bit. And Bieber's not the biggest star, but he's one of the big free agents who would have been on the market had he not chosen to stay here. And Vladdy's sticking around. You feel better about the people in charge. You feel better about the manager. It's really it's shown us what's possible for this group in a way that just I don't think a lot of people really would have believed until they went out and did it and showed that they can be a championship team. There's going to be changes. It's going to be difficult to get back, as difficult as it was to get there in the first place. But I think it really has altered the mood about the team, even if it's on the back of such bittersweetness and such such heartbreak there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, last time we spoke, it was very different mood
Yeah.
in Jay's fandom, which was, uh, you know, one of the major reasons I wanted to have you back on this time. Um, I mean, we were talking about a team where nothing seemed to go right in 2024. The Jays placed last in the AL East last season. This year, they were one run away from winning the World Series. Now, what I wanted to ask you is on paper, the team doesn't look all that different from the one that tanked last year. I mean, Max Scherzer and Anthony Santander were big additions. Scherzer was injured for a big chunk of the season and then inconsistent for the regular season when he did play.
Mhm.
Santander was essentially out the vast majority of the season. So, what was different this year?
Well, I mean, like it's never just one thing per se, but obviously they changed the hitting coach. David Popkins is the new hitting coach. They brought him in from the Twins. He was originally in the Dodgers organization. They changed some processes and just how they think about hitting strategy. Don Mattingly was their hitting strategist last year. He's still there, but in a different role. And they really seem to buy in on what Popkins was telling them and the way that the information was being presented to them. You see a guy like George Springer who was looked like he was on the backside of his career, having like one of the best years of anybody in baseball. I think hitting wise, if you look at like an advanced metric like WRC plus, I think he was third best in baseball behind Aaron Judge, Cal Raleigh, or maybe I think he was even ahead of Raleigh. I think it was like Judge and Otani were the only guys ahead of him, which is like remarkable, especially as a guy who is in his upper 30s or his mid 30s or whatever. I can't remember if he's 34 or 36, whichever it is. It was a great old guy season, as much as that pains me to say that that's an old guy in terms of the sport. But he really it's hard to pick up some of the changes, but we have a lot of like great data that we can look at now. Baseball Savant hosts a ton of it that comes off of Statcast, and one thing that we saw with the Blue Jays consistently is like they did not stop striking out. I think a thing that I know I would have said and have said a long time. The traditional sort of old man approach to when you sort of you can't do the things that you did anymore, but you still have a good eye for the baseball, is to maybe start trading some swing and miss for power. The Blue Jays didn't do that. They continued to like be really difficult to strike out, and that was like a core of their identity. They're really relentless. They did things that as maligned as Mattingly was when he was the hitting instructor, are kind of similar to what he was saying. Where I think he was ripped a lot for a quote where he said, we're not going to be 7 guys up and down the lineup hitting 30 home runs. We have to chip in here and there and do those things. And it felt last year, and it felt like when they signed Santander, who was like the opposite of that was sort of how they were feeling, that they needed to get more thump in the lineup. They were maybe a little too focused on contact and not enough on hard contact, good contact. And they managed to do both. They managed to continue to not be easy to strike out. Like they are, I think, the hardest team in baseball to strike out. That was a thing that was, we saw all through the playoffs. But they were really controlled in, getting off their A swing is something that you hear a lot about. You see in the data that the bat speed went up, and especially like throughout the year, it seems like guys were buying in. The team percentage of fast swings were going up. And you can, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you can look at the average hits off of certain levels of bat speed. And if you're swinging the bat harder, it turns out yes, you might swing and miss a little bit more, but there's so much more meaning in like every mile per hour, every tenth of a mile per hour of bat speed that you gain, that it offsets any of the bad stuff. And they were just really effective at being selective and waiting for their pitch to hit, not chasing, and just doing good things as a group, hitting wise. And I think that's just really what the difference was. And it's interesting. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had an incredible playoffs, like a legendary playoffs. Didn't have a great year, only hit 23 home runs, but guys like Springer, guys like Alejandro Kirk, and some of the guys at the bottom of the order who this, bought in here, like Ernie Clement had an incredible season. Dalton Varsho was hitting a ton of home runs this year, and is kind of an interesting shape of player on the offensive side, especially. But yeah, you're right. It was a very similar looking team, and just the outcome was so different. I think it really starts and stops with Springer though, because he is such a great, talented guy who had been on the decline for like 4 or 5 years, like literally, like across the board, all his numbers were going down, and he bought in and found the thing that he needs to do to be at the top of his game again. And it was sort of transformative. Like that was the guy who has been paid to be the producer in this lineup and hadn't, and they'd kind of had to work around the fact that he was declining, and then all of a sudden here he is being the best version of himself. And that was just such a boost to everybody else, even without the Santanders. And with Bo being back but not, he kind of caught fire at the end, also got hurt at the end. But I think across the board it was really good, but Springer really was the key for them.
Yeah, it seems with baseball in particular, players' progress isn't as linear as it might be in the sport like football, where running back hits 30 and they're generally on a downward trajectory that they're not going to recover from. It seems that what I've noticed is that players' performances over the years can ebb and flow. Have one awful year, like Bo last year, though he was injured for much of it, and then just come back the next year. And I'm wondering why that is.
I mean, I would say it's a lot of it's about randomness. I mean, the sport has a huge, as we saw at the end of the playoffs, there's a huge element of that sort of just baked within it, more so than other sports. You don't control where the ball goes when it comes off your bat. It's so hard to do, and then there's so many moving parts. And I mean, that's not necessarily untrue of a running back or a quarterback, but I think there's just a fundamental difference between throwing a ball or running with the ball, and getting your swing on plane to hit a pitch that's coming in incredibly fast and also moving in a direction you're not necessarily sure of. And so just like little, millimeters of a difference between, where your swing enters the zone or where it makes contact with the ball can produce all sorts of different results. And I think that can be part of it. And then you get out, you get your motion out of sync, or you get your swing mechanics a little bit wrong, or you're not picking up the ball as well. There's just all these little factors and all these little parts to what make up the kinetic chain of like taking a swing, especially when pitching keeps getting better and better all the time, and is so difficult to pick up on, that just make it a really, really incredibly difficult sport. And like hitting a baseball, I think a lot of people will say, is the hardest thing to do in sports. It's not stationary. It's it's a round bat on a round ball. And so, yeah, even the best guy, I mean, some guys, they do seem to have such an advantage, in terms of talent and in terms of vision and all of that they can overcome it and really produce consistently at a top level. But it's so hard to do. And I think those guys who are not quite at the Otani, at the Aaron Judge level, even a Vlad can have those ups and downs where his mechanics can get out of sync, and a ball that might be driven against the wall ends up driven into the ground, and it's just a matter of not even inches but like millimeters. So it's just so tough that way. And I think that you do see that bear out because there's so much failure baked into the sport, as well as all that randomness, that it's a successful year if you get a hit 30% of the time, right? So there's just so much failure there. There's so much randomness and such a complicated mechanism of actually putting the ball into play, that I just think it doesn't lend itself to really necessarily being able to repeat your results all the time.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts to
Mhm.
hitting a baseball, which is why I always struggled.
Yeah.
Did you ever play?
Not at any sort of high level. No, no. I've swung a bat, but no, I'm more of a fan from just watching the games.
Have you flipped a bet?
A wiffle ball bat, I've definitely flipped. Uh, a wooden bat, not necessarily. Uh, those balls didn't travel that far for me to have time to flip it.
um, yeah, what was there a particular moment during this season that you realized that this was a team that could go all the way?
It was a slow burn. I mean, I even as someone who was really watching every day, I don't know that there was a moment until they were doing it, until they were into the playoffs. I mean, uh, like when literally when they came back and won those two games in LA after the 18 inning game, that definitely felt like it. It felt before that, it felt in the Mariners series after the comebacks there that they could do it. But I would be lying if I was like, oh yeah, I could tell in September that this was a team that was going to really give a lot of teams trouble in the playoffs. Like it was really those three series. It was also, I would credit to the way that they ended and the way that, things almost spun out of control for them. In terms of winning the division and getting the bye past the division series, or sort of the wild card round of the playoffs. That was really good. They won those 4 games right at the end, kind of staved off the Yankees, who kind of faced uh, not great competition down the stretch and really made it close. But even still, the Yankees felt like a formidable opponent. The Mariners and the Dodgers felt like a formidable opponents. I understand why they were underdogs. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, the Springer home run to beat the Mariners in Game 7 of that series definitely felt like there's something special here. But even so, it was kind of like happy to be here in the World Series, which is so weird to think of when considering how heartbroken everybody has been about the way that ended. Where just a week ago it was like, wow, they're in the World Series. This is this. It doesn't get much better than this, and to have it get so close, so difficult. But yeah, like I say, I'd be lying if I said I saw it. Um, you know, that was, so I think, part of the magic of the season and part of what made everybody uh, made the team so likable for so many people. I mean, I think like betting houses had them at like 76 was their over under for win percent, or like wins this year, and they win 94 and win the American League and all that. I mean, uh, it's not like the talent wasn't there, but the way, like we talked about it like previously, like the way that it showed up for George Springer, for Alejandro Kirk, and across the board just had uh, that improvement across the board. I think was such an unexpected thing, but not necessarily a shocking thing. The talent did seem to be there before, and it was disappointing in 2024 that they lost. Um, but to have seen this coming was crazy. No, this was a wild ride.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at like the power rankings from ESPN or what
Oh
have
yeah,
you before the season, I mean, the Jays were projected to do better than they did last season, but it was still very much like 15, very middle of the road expectations. But yeah, I mean, it shows how unpredictable baseball is, and you see that too with like prospects, right? Like, um, if you're like a top prospect in like basketball, like you're almost certainly going to be like a star. Um,
mm-hmm.
Hockey to football, I think. Also, I mean, generally speaking, with some exceptions, I mean, you could be a star player in your first year if you're one of the top prospects. Baseball, though, it's a much slower burn, right? You have to go through all these levels of the minor leagues, and if you're Trey Savage, you can just plow through them in the season. And I want to ask you about Savage in a bit. But I was wondering, you mentioned Springer's home run in Game 7 against the Mariners.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was thinking your newsletter, of course, is called the Batflip, right? Named after Jose Batista's famous Batflip um, a decade ago, uh, after hitting a 3-run home run against the Texas Rangers in the playoffs. Would you say that Springer home run was sort of this playoffs bat flip moment?
Yeah, I think it has to be. I mean, Bo Bichette in Game 7 should have been. because it even had, he did a kind of mic drop thing with the bat when he put them ahead after they fell behind in that game, and everything sort of felt like it was coming together and the impossible was going to happen. But yeah, and that kind of makes it feel overshadowed, the Springer thing, because it was, they didn't do the thing. But that's true, of course, of the Bautista bat flip as well, right? That they went on and lost to the Kansas City Royals in the ALCS that year. And yeah, I think Springer's home run is going to be remembered for a very, very long time. I do think, unfortunately, the way they ended the season might be remembered a little bit more. Uh, but yeah, I think that it had that same sort of iconic quality. I think it was in the same, it was a seventh inning home run uh, to put them ahead from two behind or whatever. Like there was a lot of dimensions of it to that, and just the way that it was at home and the way that the stadium sort of exploded. Uh, that was just an incredible thing. I mean, the bat flip also for Bautista, and they're parallels too. Like, but I think that series the Jays went down 0-2 at home, had to go down to Texas, win 2 games there, and then came back and had to win that one after that crazy inning too, where Russell Martin threw the ball back to the pitcher and it hit off the deflected off the bat and was a live ball, and there was all that controversy. That really sort of set a dramatic backdrop. Not that the Game 7 with the Mariners didn't, but because I think the Springer moment is going to be something that we'll be remembering for a very long time, and when he retires and comes back, to be feted by the crowd, like that's going to be the first thing that they play. Absolutely. And as it should be. I mean, that's a huge, huge, huge moment. It's just for my mind, in the aftermath of all of the World Series, it's tough to, uh, it's tough to feel like that really was the peak. I'm still, I guess, bitter and disappointed about there not being one other sort of signature moment for the team in this run.
Did the Dodgers have a moment like that in the series where it really, that was really transformative and, flashy?
I don't know. I don't know if they did. I mean, again, this is probably me being bitter, but it felt to me like the Dodgers moments were moments when the Jays were getting in their own way. A lot of the time, Addison Barger getting picked off at the end of Game 7. The Isaiah Kiner-Falefa getting cut down at the plate by Miguel Rojas. That was a great play by them. Rojas hitting a home run. Max Muncy, like those are big. Those are huge home runs. I'm sure I'm not giving them the correct weight that a Dodger fan would, because that's such a huge thing for them. But to me, it feels like those are things where, the Blue Jays should not have allowed to happen. Whereas, where it feels more like Springer was, the actor in the thing, whereas something was happening to the Blue Jays in this one, and in all those other moments, the end of the 18 inning Game 3 as well. So yeah, I don't know. I guess you'd have to ask a Dodger fan. Which
Yeah, maybe Molly Knight has an answer.
yeah, probably. And you know what? Hey, good for them. Their team played well. They deserved it. You can't say they didn't deserve it, but I can also say I can say the Blue Jays deserved it, though, I think, as well, because that's what I'm saying. Despite all the details and all the things that they screwed up, it was it was an incredible series, and I thought they were the better team in it. Unfortunately,
Did you get a chance to go to any of the games in person?
no, I didn't. Unfortunately, as well. Yeah, tough tickets. I had a couple opportunities, but easier to do work when I'm not uh, 17 beers deep in the middle of a crowd.
Yeah, and like $300
Yeah,
uh, deep on beers alone.
yeah. No, some of the price. I mean, we're seeing scalper prices at the watch party at Scotiabank Arena. We're getting outrageous. Not like, let alone the tickets to get inside the park. It was crazy stuff. Even comparing, I did go to some of the games in the 2015 and 16 runs, and yeah, it was on another level.
Yeah, post pandemic, right?
Totally.
Um,
Yeah.
and just this, I guess, this legitimization of reselling tickets for
Yeah.
profit by Ticketmaster. I know Doug Ford's talked about capping ticket prices. Uh, do you think anything's going to happen from that?
I doubt it, but I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him to do something that benefits himself or his friends and donors. You know, that's sort of the way. But he's the one. He came in and changed that for the worse, right? So, complaining about his own legislation there, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's classic populist move.
Yeah.
Right wing populists. Yeah, someone needs to fix this problem that I've created. I mean, not they created the problem, but you exacerbated it, right?
Absolutely. No, and it's insane. It's, you know, it's all like legitimized. It's all, you know, you go on the Blue Jays website and you're getting the resale price. You know, and they have their own dynamic their dynamic pricing, like, you know, with like airline tickets now, which is all new stuff, and which I by the, you know, based on what the way that it used to be, you could probably legislate that out. And yet here we are. And I think it was like the CEO of Roots uh, caught one of the big home runs. I don't know if it was Springer's or what, but it was um, you know, there's the CEO of Roots is sitting in the, you know, behind the outfield wall. It says something about how expensive all those tickets were going to
Yeah. Getty Lee right behind home plate.
be. Yeah,
Yeah, good for Getty. I don't know. I got a soft spot for
sure,
him.
sure.
He actually I think is a distant relative of mine, which is interesting.
Oh,
But
cool.
yeah, I didn't inherit the musical talent.
But yeah,
And
it's cool seeing him. It was, and I think he was, they interwove him into the production at times too. I think, right, at the game one against the Yankees, even he was the narrating some stuff for them.
yeah, I guess he is to the Jays what Drake was to the Raptors in 2019.
Yeah, I think very much.
Except he wasn't in the dugout. Like,
Well, Drake tried to be Drake to the Blue Jays too, but I don't think
oh
he's
yeah,
got the juice anymore.
with his Rob Ford
That
coach
was
jacket.
crazy. Deep
Yeah,
reference though, deep cut, but
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Real
not
heads know.
not giving it to Drake in 2025 though.
No. Well, yeah, and people are talking about the Drake curse, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't know where's that come from? Like, just that Drake is like a widely reviled figure now. Like, is there an actual? Because I mean, you know, didn't curse the Raptors in 2019.
Right.
Again, different time, but
I think it came. I think there was. It's either him, you know, you know, Instagramming in teams gear before big games and them losing, or him betting on certain. I think there is some sort of long history of him being on the wrong side of that stuff. So it sort of flipped to the point where it's like, oh, if Drake's cheering for you, then you're cursed because he always, you know, he's always on the wrong side of those things. But you can't quote me on that. I'm an elderly person.
well, I do remember him posting his football bets,
Okay.
maybe a few seasons ago, and yeah, I don't think he had a very good track record on that. Um, but did you get a chance to like go into Toronto and sort of get a sense of like the atmosphere there? Because I found that very interesting too, as someone who doesn't live in the city. I mean, I live much further from the city than you do, but I grew up there, and you know, it was interesting. Some friends of mine who I remember I was in town briefly during the series against the Yankees, and I went with one friend to watch the game at the Doc Ellis because
Oh yeah,
he was
yeah.
naming a bunch of pubs to watch baseball. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the one named after Doc Ellis.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
another friend of mine who wanted to see me because I was in town for like a very short window, uh, was like, I don't know, I can't watch baseball. It's so boring. But yeah, I guess I'll come by and for at least a bit. And then he came by halfway through the game and he was into it. And then I saw a photo of you know, sort of that group of friends watching Game 7, and he was in it, and he got into it. And
Nice.
I've been noticed in not even just in Toronto, but friends of mine